ask you a question, and that is, what is in your life's blueprint?
This is Jeremy Till, the host of the Operator Podcast. We'll be taking you on a journey with us, interviewing some of the top performers in their field on how they operate and get the job done. At the end of the day, we want to be our best. We're going to help provide the information, the data, and the science of how to achieve that, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Let's go! Let's go! Trevor and Martha Lynn are our next guests on the Operator Podcast, a unique couple here in Austin. Martha Lynn is an entrepreneur and Trevor is an executive at Springbox. Martha Lynn has gone from working at an agency for marketing into entrepreneurial, basically living out her dreams. Unique in the sense that they have a family, and keeping it all together in 21st century is not that easy. But these guys have been able to do it with self-development and passion and driving their business to the next level. We get to hear their story and how they do it. So we're appreciative of them coming on. Trevor's been a client with us down at CrossFit Central for over 4 years, and just unique in his commitment. I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Let's get to that story of y'all meeting. And you say you were introduced to each other?
Yeah. We were at a bar with some mutual friends. We'd worked at the same place at different times, but had some overlap. And had a friend recommend. I'll spare like the exact quote for your sort of censorship scenario here, but
there's no censors here.
Was recommended that Martha Lynn maybe try to hang out with me versus some of the other types of guys that she potentially previously hung out with.
You get a lot of pride out of that, don't you?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I see it.
Well,
you passed the test.
And I like the guy a lot that recommended it. He's a good friend of mine, so stands up for me. Yeah. Passed the test.
Okay, and so then?
Well, I mean, fast forward. We've been married for 7
No, what happened? Is this how story y'all met at a bar and like y'all hit it off, or she hated you? What?
Immediately.
Hit it off at a bar.
Yes.
Immediately. And then I was headed out of town next day, and had like made her a bet or something that we could go on like a date before I left. And she's like, "Oh, this guy will never call."
No, he said, "Can I take you to lunch?" And I was headed to house sit actually the next day, and I was like, "Well, you know, I can't do lunch tomorrow." He was headed to go camping, and he was like, "Well, then can I take you to breakfast?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
Which
okay.
didn't play out quite like I had
like,
planned, but
sure, like call me. You know, I'm thinking he won't. And sure enough, the next morning, phone rings. He's like, I didn't answer because I don't like talking on the phone anyway. Check the voicemail. He's like, "Hey, just holding up my end of the deal if you want to go get breakfast." And I knew if I did not get up and go right then that I would be over it. And so we went and met at Austin Java, and he brought his dog and talked about, you know, his niece and nephew, and laid it on real thick.
Oh, my.
Yes. I mean, knowing him now, I'm like, oh, you're put on a big show. But we hit it off.
That's what we do, isn't it?
We've been inseparable ever since.
that's right.
Yep.
Cool. Well, that's a good intro to you guys. And so now I kind of want to shift gears and just talk about y'all's professional lives and kind of for each y'all to describe what y'all are currently doing in the city of Austin.
Okay. So I work at a company called Springbox. My title there is the Chief Engagement Officer, which effectively means everything sort of a client or partner on it is where I live my day in and day out. But Springbox is dedicated to helping businesses drive results through digital. So we do everything from consulting to strategy to analytics and all of the front end work that it takes to build a good foundation and get going into the world of execution, building websites, applications, tools, campaigns, social, all those types of things. We've been around in Austin for pushing 15 years, and I've been there for 6. And it's fun. We are on a growth path, and we have a lot of great clients and tons of super smart people that come in every day and drive that business for our clients. So,
How many employees are with Springbox?
we've got about, I think, 75 right now, and we're all here in Austin. for the most part.
And then you have a team that you work with directly?
Yeah, so I manage a few functions, and we sort of all work as one cohesive unit, but effectively part of my team works on net new conversations, clients that are interested in coming and working with us, people that have been referred in, and helping them get set up for the first engagement, come in the door, make sure that's successful. We have a pretty specific model in how we work, and so a lot of times that first conversation is really about how people get set up into that model and kind of create the foundation for going forward. And then the other side of the function is around how do we maintain that relationship. So I'm not a trained sales guy. I'm through and through a relationship person. And so we've built a big capability around what it means to have good, strong relationships with people and understand that people drive business. And then, if we can understand that and be sympathetic and, be objective, we can do a lot more for them than just smiling and dialing and trying to, turn things over every day. So the other side of that team is committed to that relationship side and helping people continue to grow and find the right answers.
Awesome. Cool. And I know you have an awesome story, and kind of tell us about your salon and kind of as you're the entrepreneurial arm of this relationship.
Well, we technically own the salon together, but I'm driving it, mostly these days. So to parlay on he's been there for 6 years. We've also been married for 6 years, and we opened the salon the week after we got back from our honeymoon 6 years ago. So a lot of things going on at once. So I own Mirror Mirror Salon here in town. I also write for a blog that I have, which is just marthalynkale.com. And both things are aimed to help women love what they see in the mirror, whatever that means to them. So for some people, that's a huge change. For some people, it's, just minor tweaks. But my entire team, we aim to just help women figure it out for themselves. Mostly women make it overcomplicated, and so we want to help simplify that. And we're not here to fix people. We want to teach them how to fix themselves and take control of their beauty and beyond. Mm-hmm. So we've been, again, open 6 years, but I've been doing hair for about 10, and that's what I do every day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so with the blog, do you all focus in on cosmetic approaches to that, or is there also interpersonal relationship development also a part of that process for self-esteem?
Yeah, the salon came first, and then the blog was more of just an extension of myself. And so the blog features family stuff, we have style stuff. I love to use the blog as a platform for other entrepreneurs or collaborations, things that aren't just a perfect fit in the salon. It's outfits aren't really part of the salon, so that can go over there. Or I can share, information about a vacation, or I can share, my favorite backpacks for back to school for the boys. That's not salon related, but it is, still helping women out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, just trying to be a source for them.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, so I know that Nicole, our producer and chief marketing for Operator, was telling me kind of about your story because you were at GSD&M.
Right.
And you're in the marketing world, and
Yes.
you're like, I'm transitioning, pivoting.
Yes,
and
it was quite the pivot.
So what was that looking like when you decided to jump ship? So you opened 6 years ago, but what was that like? I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs listen to this,
Sure.
so they're like, how do I jump from a corporate job into an entrepreneurial experience?
It was a big leap for me, and I was working at GSD&M, and then I worked for Texas Monthly. And so I, had done sales, and I had done media, and really a family member sort of started talking to me about, owning my own business and what would that look like. And it's the old, if money was no object, what would you do every day? And so I really spent a long time thinking about what I really enjoyed. And I have always loved hair and makeup. I love helping people. People are in a great mood when they come to a beauty salon because it's their escape and their me time. And so I decided, I started visiting beauty schools here in Austin and picked one. And it was within months that I had decided to move back home with my mom. I sold my car. I jumped into beauty school. I went from a very nice paycheck to clocking in and clocking out at beauty school every day, leaving there every night, working retail, hustling on the side. I mean, if it's really something you want to do, you'll do whatever it takes to make it happen. And I was determined to make it happen sooner than later, so I worked really, really hard early on. Mm-hmm. And I started when I was in school, really, building a brand, building my clientele. And I worked at some great salons here in Austin, and I just felt like with my business background and my marketing, and we came across the space, and it just felt like the right time. And so I just jumped and did it and opened my own salon, probably even earlier than I would have thought I would have been able to when I first set out. And it has been challenging, but well worth it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't, have it any other way.
So you, while you had a job, started to build this process to get into the salon, to open it and whatnot. So
yeah, so I went from, I graduated from beauty school, and I worked at a couple of different types of salons, one really small one really big one. And I really went in, to start just building my clientele and, become good at doing hair, And so I knew I would eventually own a salon. I just didn't know it would be so quick. Mm-hmm. And the opportunity, really presented itself, and we just sort of went for it, and we've been figuring it out ever since.
Mm. One thing that's a little different too, because maybe some of the question you're asking is like, how do you tell people, like how you do it? Like, do you work 2 jobs? Do you
Right.
keep your job and do the new thing? Being a salon owner and a beautician,
Yeah.
it's sort of this like old school term, but it's a trade. And so there is a catalyst where you have to say I'm either in or out. Like she was in school 40 plus hours a week. You can't have a full-time job. So she, it was like, you got to cut and go do that thing. Whereas, the challenge I think a lot of people meet in the entrepreneur space now is you got a great idea. You want to go do a thing. You're going to, build the thing or create in my world, everyone's got an idea for an app or whatever the thing is. But you got to hustle to that. And there are so many hours in a day. And so you kind of got to figure out the balance. And I think the part that resonates well for sure in any of the entrepreneur piece of it is you got to decide how much you want it to then go put everything else aside to go get it. I mean, working for $8 an hour retail with a college degree and 5 or 10 years of experience is like a very sort of humbling moment.
Very.
Selling your big, nice company car and getting like a little hoopty to drive is a humbling moment. And those things happen, but Martha Lynn made the call on that. And it's, here we are a few years later, and it's all like panning out. So the sacrifice is paid off, but it's hard in the moment of sacrifice to feel like there's a light at the end of that tunnel.
When really, I didn't go to beauty school until I was 27 years old. So, I like telling that part of the story too, that it's just never too late, and I really saw a window of like, I'm not married, I'm single, I don't have kids. Like, this is the time where I can be selfish. I can cut way back. I was lucky enough to be able to move in with my mom, and just pare it down. It's a lot harder, the farther down the road you are, and maybe you have kids or, husband or, other things you need to consider. So I was able to just do that at that moment and sort of set myself up for this phase now, with kids and a husband and, lots of responsibility. But yeah, I think having a little bit of work experience also makes you want to work that much harder to just get caught back up. My goal was like, how soon can I make the same money doing this as I did when I was at, Texas Monthly? And I would feel like at that point I would be back to where I left off and then could continue to grow from there. And so that was like very motivating to continue pushing. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome. And so we will get into talking about children and entrepreneurship and life with that. So did you feel like inside of your heart, your gut, like this is just what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah. And, working in ad sales for a magazine, you work way out in advance. So you're selling, for 1 month, you're selling ads that won't go in the magazine until months and months later. And so, when I initially thought I'm going to do it, I was like, well, I need to, finish out through the quarter, or you're kind of like thinking far out. But then once I knew like that's what I'm going to do, I had to do it immediately, because you don't want to wait, another day when you figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life. So I just wanted to get through that school phase as soon as possible. And so I jumped right. I wish I knew like the exact timelines. But I just jumped right in, and because I wanted to get through that part. I wanted to get to the exciting part of being behind the chair and doing clients. I didn't want to be in beauty school, but that's a means to an end.
Well, it really sounds like you know yourself well, because you know what's going to work for you or not. Because like when you said, Trevor was like, if you don't go, you'll be over it. And so you made a commitment to do it. And so that's just something you've instinctively had, like.
Yeah, I mean, I think I do know myself now. I know myself more and more, every day. And I think it's funny because I thought, well, I don't want to work in corporate anymore, and I don't want to deal with projections, and I don't want someone to, give me a goal that I have to achieve, and when will enough be enough? And it's so funny because that's exactly what I do now. It's just in a completely different capacity, and it's for my own business. And I work way more now than I ever did then, but it doesn't feel like it because it's my passion, and I love growing, my team, and I love grooming new talent is probably what I'm best at. Because a lot of people in my industry, unfortunately, just don't realize what a career it could be, and they maybe go because it is a trade, or, they didn't know what else to do, or they don't want to go to college, or, whatever their choice was. But really showing them, what can be possible, and that you don't have to follow the rules, and you can do it your own way and make it your own. And so that's really fun, helping people push themselves even farther than they knew they could go. And that is because I have that sales background. I know, how to set goals and...
Well, it seems that, for the 21st century entrepreneur, managing a salon is, you're wearing a lot of different hats. So, you're not just a practitioner of, the hair. You're also a brand extension in the market with your blog. So you have multifaceted, communication channels going out into the marketplace to build your client base, to help your, I don't know all the terminology. So it's like the individuals that, style hair in your salon. So it's like you're really creating a ongoing, marketing communication, process for the whole business to be successful. And it seems like, and I don't know how, I mean, some people think they're going to open a salon, put a sign up, and sit and wait.
They do.
And that is the recipe for failure, because I see the same thing happen in, boxes or fitness studios. They think, I'm going to open it, I'm going to get the equipment and website, and we're going to be in business. And that's a recipe for failure.
Yeah, and that's what you see a lot, because hairstylists are creative beings, and they're artists, and they want to do the art. And so they go set out and they're doing great hair, and they're, starting to make a lot of money and building a clientele, and they start thinking, what's next, and so they think the next step would be, well, I should open my salon. Like, how hard could it be? Which, if you're a great salon owner, you want them kind of thinking that, because that means it's looking effortless on the outside to them. But there's so much that goes on the back end, and there's a lot of managing people that I would say has been the more challenging, just like learning how to deal with different personality types, and how to coach people to their, personality types. And everyone is not motivated by the same things. And so, one person really cares about money, and the next cares about vacation, and the next wants flexibility, and the next wants education. But you've got to have a consistent, teaching for everyone. And kind of to your point of all the facets, it's really important for us that there's some consistency. And so, it has to look effortless on the outside, but we do put a lot of effort into what we're putting out there.
I think the difference too in opening any business or trying anything, and just like if you build, if you build it, they will come, is the motivation to get there. Like, why? I mean, why are you in fitness, Jeremy? Like, why is anybody in anything they're in? And you go back, like the thing that has been at the core for Martha Lynn since the beginning is this. It doesn't have to be this hard. She recently just did, on Tuesday night, Martha Lynn hosted a class for women, and actually all of our proceeds went to benefit Flatwater Foundation and the Damn That Cancer fundraising efforts that's coming up in June. And the tagline for this class was like, figure out how to get ready faster than an episode of Sesame Street. And, it's sort of like, what is this thing that you do? Like when you leave the house every day, like what do you want to do to feel confident? Do you put on a tie, or do you comb your hair? Or, what's your thing? And for women or anybody, the answer's broad, but that's been her mission in the beginning and has stayed consistent. It's why the blog was born. I mean, as her husband and someone that's tied into the business, it's not sort of like the friction for me is always like, when are you going to stop? Like, when's enough, which is a great problem to have. But Martha Lynn's answer is always like, well, we haven't solved it yet. Like, there's more things that we can do to help people be more successful in this. There's like more we can offer. There's better ways to do it. There's, people should feel more confident, and sort of that's like relentless pursuit of that is like what adds things on. And, even now on top of the blog, there's a lot of interest in like research in our household going into like less harmful products for your body and skin and what you eat and those kind of things as well. So it's just like the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. So it's not, the salon is the physical manifestation of sort of like what you see in the mirror, but it really is like the rest of it too. And so that has been, and I think that is the difference of, again, if you stand up a box or open a salon or any business idea that you have, if you don't have a mission behind it and you don't have a reason and a passion for doing it, the rest of it becomes very difficult to do. But that, as the core, becomes it makes the stuff that's the hardest to do the most effortless, and the challenges become things like helping people grow it and trying to figure out how to expand or do more or take on additional things, be better and innovate. Because being a small business owner, like, I worked with a guy helping him with a startup for about 3 years. And the two things that we said probably to each other every day is the hardest step is getting from 0 to 1. Once you're going, there's momentum. The other thing we always said is if it's easy, if it was easy, everybody'd do it. And it's not. And getting from 0 to 1 is hard. But if you can create a reason for believing and doing, and that creates a ton of momentum, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The SBA has approved thousands of loans. It's not a new process. There's tons of commercial real estate people. There's great attorneys and CPAs. I mean, that stuff that people feel like is overwhelming because they don't know why they're doing what they're doing, in my view. Whereas if that stuff, if you know what you're doing, that stuff becomes just like checking boxes to go get it done. And
you mean when you say you know what you're doing, you mean like why you're doing
why you're doing it. Yeah, and you put your challenge and you put your effort in innovation. So how do you be better at it? How do you keep getting better? How do you offer more? Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's good to great. It's, what can you be the best in the world at? And so you really have to, there are 1 million hair salons and 1 million stylists, and everyone's doing a lot of the same looks. It's really not about the hair. It's the experience, it's the environment, it's the team. And that's really, what you don't realize when you go into, you think you're going to be a hairstylist. It's all about the hair. You're learning how to do cut and color and all the fun stuff. And, when I graduated from beauty school, it had never dawned on me that no one's never had their hair cut. And so ultimately now I had to go out and people had to break up with their hairstylists, which is a very emotional thing, it turns out. And so, some people are really, they're married to their stylist. They love it, and that's great. There's a ton.
I'm married to my stylist.
He is actually married to his stylist. There is a ton of people that just don't love their hair, and they don't love it. And so you have to go out and find those people, and then they have to go through that emotional, like, breakup with their style. It's dramatic. People's hair is dramatic and emotional, and I don't know. I would have never thought. That was not what I thought I would have to deal with. I thought I'm just going to go to beauty school and be good at it, and then I'll move on and do hair.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you've mentioned, personalities, and you mentioned good to great, and you're mentioning, self-development. So what kind of has been a recipe or a protocol that you've implemented for your staff and for your work environment or for your own self to develop?
I am in a constant state of self-improvement. I love the Dave Ramsey Entree Leadership podcast. That's a really good one that they have, authors on all the time, and I'm always reading a new book and, trying a new thing. And, a lot of them say kind of the same things, but it's always great reminders. And they're all kind of driven by, find your passion, have a mission, tie back to it. You can't just be a widget maker. You got to have a reason, because that will get boring, And so, you mean what books have I read lately? Or
Sure.
I mean, I love the One Thing is one of my favorites. We read that, the entire salon read it.
Still practicing the One Thing.
We're working on that. Because Gary Keller says if you have more than one thing, you need more than one person, and there's still just one person. But that is, asking yourself constantly, what is the one thing you could do that if you did it, everything else would be easier?
Absolutely. Yeah, we were able to have
very impactful.
Jay, the co-author of that, on the podcast, which is great.
Yeah.
And Wendy their team is our real estate team.
Yeah.
So it's a good team to have.
And then lately, The Pumpkin Plan and Profit First by the same author. I will butcher his name if I try to say it, but those books have been really,
Profit First is a book that if you have less than $1,000 in your savings account, even if you're not a business owner, you should go read that book and apply it, because it is an incredible light bulb scenario to how to look at finances in general. And the term that we use at our house all the time is how do you put your mask on first? In a cabin loses pressure in an airplane. Before you help anybody else, what do you do? Because you're only able to help anybody if you've got your mask on. Profit First that has changed our business. It's changed our personal scenario. And when you're on a small business, there's a lot of blurry lines between the two.
And I think people talk a lot about revenue, and they don't talk very much about profit.
Yeah.
And so, you think sell, if I just, the numbers, but the costs always meet the sales, and you make more and you spend more. And so it's a discipline of teaching yourself to, to create profit, which is, if you're in a for-profit business, that is the goal. And that has been, it's changed our entire business.
Yeah. I think the other thing too that's tough in that is how do you, the heart as a small business or entrepreneur, or I guess leader in general, because I run into this same challenge in my role, and I don't own Springbox, but I've been there for a long time and take a lot of ownership in it. Is how do you do these things and be diligent and committed to self-improvement without looking like a manic leader? And that is something that takes some balance and I think discipline and research to even figure out how to go do. But if you come in every day and you make a new decision, people are just constantly trying to figure out which way you're looking and what's going to happen next. And that's a hard way for people to follow in a zigzag. If you think about that, straight line or a curve in the road here and there is easier than a 90-degree turn every time they, turn around kind of thing. So I think we've spent a lot of time, and maybe those 3 books that you mentioned are less of this, but the EntreLeadership is that podcast, and there's some others out there that are very intentional on how you kind of become that consistent leader and what that means.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think in my earlier, even through my first portion of my entrepreneurship journey, that I was very seeking in self-development to the highest level, and it became erratic behavior. And then, circling back and getting what behavioral discipline actions look like to create habits that creates consistency, so people can know what it is that you're doing and why you're making the choices that you're making, really rooted in integrity and character, will show that there's a foundation here that I can trust. Then we can really build. And that has been a journey of mine now. And I really, in the past year, have started to get really grounded in that. And it's really been a game changer, because now I can really lock into, where there's breakdowns in the team, where there's breakdowns in my actions, where they're not meeting up with our own expectations, and then having accountability, which will equate to our results. And so it's in, what we're doing with Operator, as well as to learn these protocols so we can teach the protocols. And you can fall into that, because I've been, squirrel, this book, that.
Yes.
And then the next thing at your each Friday or whatever staff meeting, you're talking about the next book you're reading, and the people are like, you've lost it. We're
Yeah.
still trying to stay on this book.
Right.
And so I definitely know and follow what you're talking about. So
Well, and I think that's what, having the purpose and the vision, because you can always go, oh, okay, well, we got to tie back to that. We got, yes, that's a great idea, but is that lining up with what our initial vision was for the business, and creating those systems so that you are not, bouncing all over the place.
Absolutely.
Or we just, we read the books and we don't tell everyone about everything and every idea, and you just make them your own. We ended up making a list of, I think, 20 or so, books and seminars and classes and coaches that we've used, and we have just taken the best of reel from all of them and created our business to work for us. Because I think also people get obsessed with these plans, and this is the book and this is the plan and we have to do it exactly, but it's you're still dealing with people, and your business is going to be different than that business, and you have to ultimately decide what's best for you.
Absolutely. So, Trevor, kind of thinking about in your business with Springbox, you said relationships first. That becomes challenging for people, and how do you really create that paradigm for yourself and your staff? Because I know you're really connected. I know you do Flatwater Foundation. You know a lot of people. Is that a natural talent of yours, or did you have to develop it?
The basis is probably natural. I think I've always sort of been like an outgoing kind of relationship type person. But that said, as I've gotten older, I've realized how much work it is to really maintain relationships. And that doesn't just mean professional. If you're in a marriage, you have to work at a marriage. If you're in a friendship, I actually just this week had an interesting experience. There's like 4 or 5 friends from my hometown I haven't talked to in years, and I just sent them all a note that I was going to be in Seattle in a few weeks, and they're all, everyone's thrilled to get together, and that's great. I'm looking forward to that. Sort of in hindsight, going like, man, why did I take so long to make the effort? And so I think that again, a lot of that comes sort of. I like people. I like to be around people. I like to hang out and share stories and learn from other people. But having relationships is something that takes more than just getting out of bed in the morning and kind of doing it. You got to understand how that works, and you got to try at it. Otherwise, people fall off and life gets in the way and all the rest of that.
Mm-hmm. So kind of transitioning here, I know you'll have 2 children. Mm-hmm. And so married 6 years, 2 children. Y'all going to have any more?
I don't think so.
No.
Not unless Trevor's going to carry the next one.
He might be up for that.
We always say never say never, but sort of I think we've agreed if we're going to have any more kids, they're going to have to be someone else's kids that we're going to adopt or something.
Yeah.
Because at this point I think we're on our way with 2.
Yeah.
Two's good.
So you have 2 kids now, and how's it been? Like, because, it was a huge for me and my wife in operating the business. My son is now 4.5, and from, the process of the birth to today has, I'm 100%, 180 different person than I was, 5 years ago. And, there was the struggle, there was the pain, there was the priority transition. And, that whole journey was just a big, shift for me. And it's really made me who I am today, just due to that. And I'm interested to hear people's journeys, because some people say, oh, it was easy and it just came out and we were just amazing parents and we succeeded.
Yeah, I don't think easy is. There's sort of 2 parts to this. We tend to take on a lot. It's sort of our personalities, and I think we like some of the pace that goes with that. But easy is not usually like the symptom that falls out of taking on a lot. Martha Lynn had really tough pregnancies with both of our kids, which, when you're on your, effectively, if she doesn't do hair, she doesn't get paid. So that affects things like income, if she's feeling sick or whatever. Time off from a maternity perspective, like I have a little more of a, like what you would, I guess, call like mainstream or corporate gig, but like, she didn't go to work for 3 months. That's an income that you've got to like plan for. It's a lot of thinking, and that was just in the beginning. Childcare is a huge stressor for us. This is the question that people ask us all the time. How do you do it? I don't know that either of us know the answer. We subscribe heavily to It Takes a Village as like
Like an actual village.
Like an actual village.
Like that many people.
I mean, like there's like this week alone, you know, and we're so super lucky that both of our moms live nearby. So, but you know, I mean, her mom was over last night. My mom's picking up one of our kids today. We've got a nanny on board there. I mean, you know, people at work pitch in. It's the whole deal. And that is one of the biggest challenges, but it is a different perspective, and it does help like realign those priorities as well. Kind of through that journey. And it's tough to think about all things aren't created equal. Which one do you go do first, and where some of that stuff lies. And, but yeah, it takes a village has sort of been the biggest learning along.
It forces you to be super intentional with your time too, because for me, you know, we've had sort of this like childcare hybrid for the last probably year, you know, like a little bit of nanny, a little bit of daycare, one's in preschool. I work a couple days behind the chair, in the office a couple days, like Trevor's at work. So, you know, I know when my windows are. I know when I can book a dentist appointment. I know when I have to see clients. I know when I can write content, you know, and then I know when I have my time with my kids. And so you have to be just so on it to be whatever you're supposed to be doing at the time, because otherwise you feel like when you're with the kids, your mind's at work. When you're at, you know, work, your mind's with the kids. But my kids are going to be better for seeing me be, you know, a mom that loves what they do and seeing me run my own business than to be, you know, at home and feeling like I'm missing out, or I don't know. I love to work. You know, I love what I do. I love helping people, and I love my kids. I love spending time with them as well. And so I've been very lucky. I mean, this is why I chose this path, was so that I can create a hybrid, so I can, you know, set my schedule to what works. And I would say every 4 to 6 months it changes. You know, we have to adjust the schedule, and, you know, like summer's coming up now, and so that's going to be a different schedule than it has been. And then the fall will be a different schedule. I mean, it's constant logistics, you know, and planning. And then the minute you think you have it organized and planned, someone has an ear infection, or, you know, Trevor's it usually happens at the same time. Like nanny's out of town, kid's sick, Trevor's flying, I have a meeting and a photo shoot, like on the same day. And you're like, well, we tried.
Yeah.
We thought we had it figured out this week. We don't.
House of cards.
That's okay.
House of cards.
Wing it.
It's hard too to find the priority for yourself and all of that too. I mean, I started actually working out at Central just before our son was born. I sort of joke now, but I made this resolution. I don't want to be a fat dad. That was like, I mean, I want it functionally fit. I mean, I've shared a lot of this with you, but you know, how am I making sure that when our kids are here, I'm capable of like being active and fun with them, and also be able to stick around long enough to see them grow up. And that's evolved in a big way. I think I used to come work at like 7:30 and like cruise home and like roll into work. Now I get here at, well, when I come,
no judgment.
5:30 in the morning. I mean, I get home before the lights are even back on in the house most days, you know, but that time, trying to find that time for yourself is important too, which is tough. I came today 2 times this week, Jeremy.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Well, cool. I know you talked about like intention, and then I kind of thinking about like, you know, right now mindfulness and meditation and intention or gratitude are kind of like some buzzwords that people really talk about. And so how does that really balance you out? Like, is there an intentional practice that you do for that, or how's that look for you guys?
I have to spend time by myself. And it's, I don't need to be like meditating or anything, but I just know, you know, a few years in on this parenting thing and a few years in on marriage and owning a business, that the way that I recharge is alone. And for me, sometimes that's walking around Target with a Starbucks in my hand by myself, and I don't have to talk to anyone or do anything. But it doesn't take much. You know, I like relaxing. I stand on my feet all day for a living. I talk to people all day for a living. So I have to have time when I'm not doing either of those things, or going, you know, for a walk or something like that. Trevor's, you know, we recharge differently, you know?
Yeah, I tend to be more of like a group recharger. which doesn't work
Social.
necessarily when your wife wants to recharge a loan, but we figure out how to make it work. I mean, for me, it's two things. It's just getting some time with some quiet headspace. I've found that sort of in those early morning times is like it's the easiest to be consistent and intentional about. But also just sort of weighing what else is out there. I mean, there's a lot that goes on a regular basis, and talk about relationships. For me, one of the things I really like to do is just find some of those relationships that, I mean, even though you got to work at them, the ones that are easier to work at, and just go spend some time with friends and blow off some steam or whatever the thing is. So, and that kid thing applies too, but sometimes it's nice to not have to be the parent for an hour. It's my version of walking around Target without anybody screaming or yelling at me.
So from each of you, I'll get this answer is, what would be one piece of advice that you would give to, just to give, if you were to give advice, like something like yours, like maybe your soapbox thing or something like that?
I mean, I always say, I love, leap and the net will appear, because I think that we get too caught up in, how is this going to happen? And we want to plan and we wait. And, it's like, for me, like launch at a website or something, you're like, well, it's not there yet. And so then you just never do it. Like, you just got to do it. Do version 1.0 and then go ahead and be working on, 2.0 the day after you start 1.0, and constantly being open to evolving, because the second that you sit back is you're going backwards. There is no sitting still. You're either going forward or backwards. And so if you're just keeping that momentum going and keep pushing, and if you want to make a change, then just do it. Like, find a way and do it, because where there's a will, there's a way. You will figure it out. You may have to be resourceful, and you may have to go work a job you never thought you'd have to work again to make it make ends meet until the passion has a paycheck, but it's well worth it.
How about you?
That was a great answer.
Oh, thanks.
For me, I think it's focusing and being really intentional. If I could tell people to be really intentional, or like guide them somehow to understand how to stop and focus on the things that energize them versus drain them. That's pretty broad in like sort of scope of what that could mean. But I think a lot of times in small business and our jobs and our families and whatever else, you get so focused in the stress and the have to do's and the what else is out there of like stuff that you don't want to do, that we forget to sort of stop and look at the what's great. I mean, you got to run a small business if you got to run a business, and if you've got clients that are always wanting free stuff, or that stuff becomes like hard to manage versus like focusing on like what you're really good at and that you can charge for. It translates to value. Or in your personal relationship, if you've got friends that just always sort of want but aren't able to like reciprocate and be friends, if you go to lunch with someone and they talk for 50 minutes and you talk for 10, sometimes that can be like an indicator of some of that stuff. And it's just,
sorry about that.
No, we're good. I felt like we're pretty balanced, but I think that would be it. And I think the thing that's hard to consider, what people don't realize, is there is actually a emotional feeling that goes along with that type of energy. And it's not like energy, like I've had a cup of coffee and I'm ready to face the day. It's that like focusing on things where there's purpose and you get like adrenaline from it. And putting more emphasis behind that, because the other response also has energy, but it's not as positive, and it can just kind of drag you down and become the only thing that you can see. So keep it positive. How's that?
That was a good answer too.
Awesome. Well, guys, I want to say thank you for coming on the podcast, and I know that y'all are busy people, and cut out some time on this day is we're grateful for. And we're going to get up your blog and your website on the podcast notes and all that good stuff, and get the word out. And we just appreciate you guys being awesome, and looking forward
for having
to
us.
Yeah, that's been great.
So does he not let you do the Damn That Cancer paddle?
I'm sure he would let me. That's just...
You just don't do it?
No, not so much. I don't necessarily want to drive that far.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I know it's neat. I was thinking about our podcasters because, I mean, we've had Mark and Chelsea on.
Yep.
You know, we've had Jay, who you had mentioned, on. Have you met Jay?
I haven't.
We'll have to get y'all connected. And then even Mac Richard, I know that y'all are out
Yeah, we
there.
love him.
Lake Hills, Mac's an awesome
Yep.
guy. So there's an awesome ecosystem in Austin, and great to be able to be in contact with you guys. So thank y'all so much.
Awesome.
Likewise.
Thanks so
Appreciate it.
much.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on the Operator Podcast. Please join us on our virtual platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and we will see you soon.